This is a 2005 Chevrolet Cobalt. It's 2.2 liter. It has a serpentine belt, drive belt, fan belt, whatever you want to call it. Mostly serpentine. That runs the alternator and the AC compressor. You're going to need a special slim tool for this, a ratchet, low profile, slim ratchet. I got mine at O'Reilly's. I also bought a pipe to get some more leverage at Lowe's. So there's going to be a lot of information in this video explaining how to change your serpentine belt. And it's all about relieving the tension on the automatic tensioner. You got to turn it counterclockwise to raise the tensioner so that the belt gets loose and you can take it off and then put a new one on. If it were only so simple. Because the Cobalt's engine is sideways, this is all taking place on the passenger side of the car. So there's three ways you could do this. The third is pretty bizarre way to do it, but some people are claiming they've done it that way, and you might actually have to do it that way if you want to do more than just the belt. There is a drive chain which is behind the belt, but the drive chain doesn't need service. It's a lifetime chain. You might want to put a new bolt in it at like 100,000 miles or get a new chain, but that's incredibly dangerous, because if you mess it up you throw the timing off and throw a valve in your engine. So this is how to remove and replace the serpentine belt on a Chevy Cobalt. This is a 2005. It's not an SS. The SS has more things running off the belt. It only costs about $200 for a professional to do it. I suggest you do that, because this is going to be a little bit difficult, a little bit time consuming, requires some special tools, other obvious tools. Like I said, the belt, it wraps around the crankshaft and the AC compressor and the alternator, and then there's the tensioner. You got to raise the tensioner, belt comes off, put the new belt on, wrap it around the alternator first, then around the bottom of the AC, then back around to the left around the crank, and then you put the you turn counterclockwise, so you move it to the right to counterclockwise to relieve the tension on the tensioner, and then you got to slide your belt underneath the tensioner. It would help to have a friend who can do it from up top, because it's very tight. Make sure that the belt is still on the alternator before you let go of the tensioner. So you're going to need a special slim tool to lift the tensioner to fit in the tight space there. The auto parts store rental serpentine belts and the serpentine belt tools you could buy off the shelf won't fit in the Chevy Cobalt. Probably going to need a new set of plastic retaining clips, because they're impossible to get off. They've got fins on the back. So you get a screwdriver and loosen it, the flat part of it, and then you try to pull it, but it ain't going to come out. You're really going to have to pull on it, yank on it, you end up destroying it. It's just easier to cut it. You're going to probably destroy it no matter what you do. So those are plastic retainer clips. They come in packs of 10, 5 on each side. There's also screws, 3 different places to remove the plastic shield covering the belt in the wheel well. And the final screw is actually in the front. It's like you almost have to remove the bumper to get to it. It's really difficult. So other obvious tools you're going to need are a jack stands, screwdriver, flathead, and Phillips. You're going to use the flathead to get the screw off the manifold plastic and to remove the air box. A ratchet, socket, 10mm. Again, that's all for the air box and all the plastic on the front of the car. Maybe a wrench, long one. If you're going to be changing the tensioner as well, you got to get that bolt. Slim sockets you might need if you're doing the tensioner replacement, which you should do because it's got a spring in it. Not just your belt's got cracks in it, but your tensioner is the spring. It's not putting enough tension on your belt. So you might need a Serpentine belt tool to do that part. So I got the wrench, you stick it up in there and it fits in this square on the tensioner. And then just turn it counterclockwise and it rotates up. But you got to hold it. Doesn't release itself and become in an up position. You're pulling it and you got to maintain your pressure on it while you're taking the belt off, and then you let go and it falls down, almost touches the crank. Then you get your other belt routed around all three parts, and then you lift up the tensioner again and put the belt underneath the tensioner. It's best to do it that way because all the pulleys that the belt rides in, they all have lips on them. So to try to get it over a lip, like if you're going to do it from the bottom, wrap it around the crank and the AC and then go up to the alternator, you got to get it over the pulley. And it's not easy to do that. And so the tensioner pulley wheel is flat, so it's easier to try to get around that, but it's difficult to reach from the bottom to pull it up underneath the tensioner. If you get enough leverage on it like I did, it sort of just popped into place, but I did have someone up top guiding it and keeping it on the alternator, and they said it was just there. So it helped to have a friend. So what you got to do is you got to take your wheel off, get in there, take all the clips off the splash guard, unscrew all the screws from the splash guard. Get your slim wrench up in there, get it into the square, and then pull the tension. And that's all you're doing here. There is a hole in the wheel well to access the tensioner bolt to remove the tensioner. I didn't remove my tensioner. I didn't touch that bolt. It sounds like you might have to put a piece of wood on a jack and then put that under the oil pan and then jack up the engine some to get the bolt in the right place. That's the other third option, is to jack up the engine slightly and slowly with a piece of wood going across the oil pan on the bottom. And then you raise it a little bit to get it up off the engine mount. And then you take off the engine mount bracket. And then you got a lot of room to work. You probably still are definitely gonna need you're still gonna need a slim serpentine belt tool. People say they've jacked up their engine that way. People say not to do it. The second option, so that's the third option. The second option is to try to do it from the top. So you take off the plastics, take off the air box, and then try to get a slim wrench in there. It's possible, it's doable. I would recommend that you do it from the top and the bottom. Take off all the plastics on the top and the bottom so that you got the belt lined up correctly. Taking the plastics off is a big pain.